I suffered a shirt or two in my old carpet bag, tugged it under my arm, and started at Cape Horn in the Pacific, quitting the good city of the old Manhattan. I duly arrived in New Bedford. It was on Sunday night in December. Much was I disappointed upon learning that the little packet in Nantucket had already sailed, and that no way of reaching the place would offer, till the following of Monday. As most young candidates for the pains and penalties of whaling stop at this same New Bedford, there thence to embark on their voyage, it may as well be related that I, for one, had no idea of so doing, for my mind was made up to sail in no other than Nantucket craft, because there was a fine, boisterous something about everything connected with that famous old island, which amazingly pleased me. Beside, though, New Bedford has of late been gradually monopolizing the business of whaling, and though in this matter poor old Nantucket is now much behind her, yet Nantucket was her great original, the Thyre of the Canhedge, the place where the first dead American whale was stranded. Where else but from Nantucket did those aboriginal whalemen, the red men, first sally out in canoes to give chase to the Leviathan? And where but from Nantucket, too, did that first adventurous little sloop put forth, partly laden with imported cobblestones? So goes the story to throw at the whales, in order to discover where they were nigh enough to risk the harpoon from bowsprit. Now, having a night, a day, and still another night following before me in New Bedford, ere I could embark for my destined bookmark, heckin' stay, my destined port, it became a matter of concernment where I was to eat and sleep meanwhile. It was a very dubious-looking, nay, very dark and dismal night, brightly coloured, bitingly cold and cheerless. I knew no one in the place. With anxious grapnels, grapnels, I had sounded my pocket and only brought up a few pieces of silver. So, wherever you go, Ishmael, I said to myself as I stood in the middle of the dreary street, shouldering my bag, and comparing the gloom towards the north with the darkness towards the south, whether in your youth, wisdom, you may conclude to lodge for the night, my dear Ishmael, be sure to inquire the price, and don't be too particular. With halting steps I paced the streets and passed the sign of the Crossed Harpoons, but it looked too expensive and jolly there. Further on, from the bright red windows of the Sword Fin Inn, there came such fervent rays that it seemed to have melted the packed snow, ice from before the house, for everywhere else the congealed frost lay 10 inches thick in a hard asphaltic pavement, rather weary for me. When I stuck my foot against the flinty projections, because from hard, remorseless service, the soles of my boots were in a most miserable plight. Too expensive and jolly, again, thought I, pausing the moment to watch the broad glare in the street, and hear the sounds of the tinkling glasses within. But go on, Ishmael, said I at last. Don't you hear? Get away from before the door. Your patched boots are stopping the way. So on I went. I now, by instinct, followed the streets that took me waterward, for there doubtless were the cheapest, if not the cheeriest, inns. Such dreary streets, blocked and blackness, not houses, nor on either hand, and here and there in candle like candle moving about in the tomb, and this hour of the night, the last of the day and week, that a quarter of town proved all but deserted. But presently I came to a smoky light proceeding from a low, wide building, the door of which stood invitingly open. It had a careless look, as if it were meant for the uses of public, so so entering, the first thing I did was to stumble over an ash box in the porch. Ha! Thought I, ha! As the flying particles almost choked me. Are these ashes from that destroyed city, Gomorrah? But the crossed harpoons and the sword fish. This then must needs be the sign of the trap. However, I picked myself up and, hearing a loud voice within, pushed on and opened a second interior door. It seemed to be a great black parliament sitting in Tophet. 100 black faces turned round in their rows to peer, and beyond a black angel of doom was beating a book in a pulpit. It was I forgot about this. It's an inward church, and the preacher's text was about the blackness of darkness and the weeping of wailing of teeth gnashing there. Ha, Ishmael, I muttered. I backed out, retching in entertainment at the sight of the trap. Moving on, I at last came to a dim sort of out-hanging light, not far from the docks, and heard a forlorn creaking in the air, and looked up, saw a swimming sign at the door, with a white painting upon it, faintly representing a tall, straight jet of misty spray, and these words underneath: "The Spouter Inn, Peter Coffin." Coffin, Spouter, rather ominous in that particular context, contection, I thought. But in a common name in Nantucket, they say. I suppose this Peter here is an immigrant from there, and the light looked dim in place. For a time looked quiet enough, and the dilapidated little wooden house itself looked as if it might have been carted here from the ruins of some burnt district. And as the swinging sign had a poverty-stricken sort of creak to it, I thought that here was the very spot for a cheap lodging, as the best of P coffee, as in PEA. It was a queer sort of place, a gable. Sorry. Okay. Gable-entered old house, one side palisade it were, and leaning over sadly, it stood on a sharp, bleak corner, where a tempestuous wind Aeroclidon kept up hoarse howling that ever it did about poor Paul's tossed craft. Aeroclidon. Nevertheless, it is a mighty pleasant zephyr to anyone indoors, with his feet on a hob quietly toasting for bed, in judgment of that tremendous wind called Aeroclidon. Says an old writer of whose works I possess the only copy existent. Dang. It maketh a marvellous difference whether thou lookest out at the front glass window, where the frost is all on the outside, for whether thou observeth it from the ashes window, where the frost is on both sides, and of which the weight death is the only glazier. True enough, thought I, as the passage occurred to my mind. Old black letter, thou resonest well. Yes, these eyes are windows in this body of mine. The house with a pity. Oh, I got the wrong chapter. That's why. Oh. The house. What a pity they don't stop up the chinks and the carrion thrust and the lint here and there. But it's too late to make any improvements now. The universe is finished. The copestone is on, and the chips were carted off 1,000,000 years ago. Poor Lazarus there, chattering his teeth against the cobblestone for his pillow, and shaking off the tatters with his shivering. He might plug up both ears with rags, and put on a corn cob into his mouth, and yet that would not keep out the tremendous Euclidon. Euclidon, says old Dives, in his red silken wrapper. He had a redder one afterwards. Pooh, pooh! What a fine frosty night! How Orion glitters! What northern lights! Let them talk of their oriental summer claims and everlasting conversations. Give me the privilege of making my own summer with my own coals. But what thinks Lazarus? Can he warm his blue hands by holding them up to grand northern lights? Would not Lazarus rather be in Sumarta than here? Would he not far rather lay him down lengthwise along the line of Equota? Yes, gods! Go down to the fiery pit itself in order to keep out this frost. Now that Lazarus should lie stranded there on the curbstone before the door of Dives, this is more wonderful than an iceberg should be moored to one of Moluccus. Yet Dives himself, he too lives like a czar in an ice place made of frozen ice, and being a president of Temperature Society, Temperance Society, he thinks the tepid tears of orphans. What my, oh my. But no more of his blubbering now. We are going a-walling, and there is plenty yet to come. Let us scrape the ice from our frosted feet and see what is the place of the spouter may be. Okay, so basically what's going on is, bro is cold, and he just showed up in some super, boring inn, because he is broke AF. So, just to translate for the Gen Z out there, that's basically what's going on. He came to this super cheap inn, and it's cold AF. Chapter 3, because I had to skip the entirety of Chapter 1, because it's just the dude monologuing about himself and his origin story. Whew. Entering that globe ended sputterin', you found yourself in a wide, low, staggered entry with old-fashioned wainscots. Remained one of the bulwarks of some condemned old craft. On one side hung a very large oil painting, so thoroughly book-smoked, and every way defaced, that in the unequal cross-lights by which you viewed it, it was only by diligent study and a series of semantic visits to it, and carefully inquiry of the neighbors, that you could in any way arrive at an understanding of its purpose. Such unaccountable masses of shades and shadows that at first you almost thought some ambitious young artist in the time of the New England hags had endeavored to delineate. Sorry, I have dyslexia, so on top of the struggles here, I have dyslexia. this is this is this is my final boss, basically. Something about being bewitched. Oh my gosh, who got bewitched? New England hags had endeavored to delineate chaos bewitched, but by dint of much earnest contemplation and oft repeated ponderings, and especially by throwing open the little window towards the back of the entry, you at last came to the conclusion that such an idea, however wild, might not be altogether unwarranted. But what most puzzled the confounded you was a long, limber, portentous black mass of something hovering in the center of the picture, the over 3 blue dim pendicular lines floating in a nameless yeast. A boggy, soggy, squitchy picture truly, enough to drive a nervous man distracted, yet was there a sort of indefinite, half-attained, and unimaginable subtlety about it that fairly froze you to it, till you involuntarily took an oath with yourself to find out what the marvelous painting meant, ever and anon and bright, but alas, deceptive idea would dart your thought. It's the Black Sea in a midnight gale. It's the unnatural combat of the 4 primal elements. It's a blasted heath. It's a hyperborn winter scene. It's a breaking up of the icebound stream of time. But at last all of these fancies yielded to that one portentous something in the picture's midst. That why is it italicized? That one found out, and all the rest were plain. But stop, does it not bear a faint resemblance of gigantic fish? Even the greatest Leviathan himself? Oh my gosh, bro's gawking at a picture. Bro, chill. You're not the main character. You're just kidding. In fact, the artist's design seemed this, a final theory of my own, partly based upon the agrested opinions of many aged persons with whom I conversed upon the subject. The picture represents a Cape Horn in a great hurricane, the half-founded ship well tearing where this 3 dismantled masts alone visible. Okay, where do we get to the gay stuff? I'm just kidding. Bro, chill. Oh, my hair is all crazy. There, now I look a little better. Crossing this dusky entry, and on through yon low-arched way, cut through what in old times must have been a great central chimney, with fire placed all around, you entered the public room, a still duskier place as this, with such low, ponderous beams above, and such old, wrinkled planks beneath, that you would almost fancy you trod some craft's cockpits, especially of such a hollowing night, when this corner-anchored old ark rocked so furiously. On one side stood a long, low, shelf-like table carved with cracked glass, filled with dusty rarities gathering from this wide world's remotest nooks. Projecting from the further angle of the room stands a dark-looking den, the bar a rude attempt at an at right whale's at a right whale's head. Be that how it may, bro is autistic about whales. Like, oh my gosh. A right whale's head. Be how it may, there stands the vast arched bone of the whale's jaw, so wide a coach might almost drive beneath it. Within are shabby shelves ranged around with old decanters, bottles, flasks, in those jaws of swift destruction, like another cursed Johann. Johann? By which name indeed they called him. Bustles. Bustles. A little withered old man, who for their money dearly sells the sailors' deliriums and death. Abominable are the troublers into which... Oh, my hair keeps tickling my face. Here we go. Abominable are the tumblers of the internet, who into which he pours his poison, though the true cylinders within the villainous green goggling glasses, deceitfully trapped downwards onto a cheating bottom. Parallel misendurians rudely pecked into the glass, surrounded these foot traps goblets, filled to this mark, and you charge is but a penny, to this a penny more, and so on the full glass. Burp. The Cape Horn measure, which you may gulf down for a shilling. Upon entering the place, I talk about dyslexia. The place, I found a number of young seamen gathered. Why am I so immature? Gathered upon a table, examining by a dim light diverse specimens of skirmsband, skirmspander. I sought the landlord, and telling him I desired to be accommodated with a room, received an answer that his house was full, not a bed unoccupied, but a vast, he added, tapping his forehead. You hain't no objections to sharing a harpooner's blanket, have ye? I suppose you are going a whaling, so you better get used to that sort of thing. I told him that I never liked to sleep two men in a bed, that if I should ever do so, it would depend upon who the harpooner might be, and that if he, a landlord, really had no other place for me, and the harpooner was not decidedly objectable, why, rather than wander further about a strange town on so bitter a night, I would put up with the half of any decent man's blanket. I thought so, all right. I thought so, all right. Take a I'm changing his accent like crazy. I have no idea anyone's accents or anything. Take a seat, supper. You want supper? Supper, I'll be ready directly. I sat down in an old wooden settle, carved all over like a bench on battery. At one end, ruminating tar was still further adorning it with his jacket knife, stooping over and diligently working away at the space between his legs. He was trying his hand at a ship under full sail, but he didn't make much headway, I thought. So basically, bro got a bed with another bro. basically the whole point I made this video because I thought it was funny. Because every time I said, "Hey, did you guys know that Moby Dick has an only one bed trope scene?" Everyone's like, "What? Really?" So this is me proving that it does have an only one bed trope scene. And it gets kind of gay. Kind of does though. Anyways, at last, some 4 or 5 of us were summoned to our meal in an adjoining room. It was cold as Iceland. This was that's actually funny. No fire at all. The landlord said he couldn't afford it. Nothing but 2 dismal tallow candles, each in a window sheet. We were fain to button up our monkey jackets and hold our lips cups of scalding tea with our half-dozen fingers. Frozen fingers. That's how dyslexic I am, brothers. Just thought I'd make this disgusting for you guys. Frozen fingers, but the fare was of the most substantial kind. Not only meat and potatoes, but dumplings. Good heavens! Dumplings for supper. One young fellow in my green box coat addressed himself of these dumplings in a most direful manner. "My boy," said the landlord, you'll have a nightmare to a dead strany. Startany. "Landlord," I whispered, "that ain't a harpooner, is he?" "Oh, no," he said, looking a sort of diabolically funny. "The harpooner is a dark complexion chap. He never eats dumplings, he doesn't. He eats nothing but steaks, like some rare." "The devil he does," says I. Where is that harpooner? Is he here?" "He'll be here before long." What? I'm mixing up so many accents, I can't. I could not help it, but I began to feel suspicious of this dark, complex harpooner. At any rate, oh no, not the vegan in the carnivore meeting. Oh my gosh. I made up my mind that if it so turned out we should sleep together, he must undress and get into bed before I did. Suppose over, the company went back to the bar room. When, knowing not what else to do with myself, I resolved to spend the rest of the evening as a looker-on. Presently, in rioting noise was heard without. Starting up. The landlord cried, That's a Grampus crew. Grampus? That's a Grampus crew. I see it reported out in the offing this morning. 4 years voyage and a full ship. Hurrah, boys! Now we'll have the latest news from the Figgies. A tempering of sea boots was heard in the entry. The door was flung open, and in rolled a wild set of mariners enough, enveloped in their shaggy watch coats, with their hands muffled in woolen comforters, all bedarned in ragged, and their beards stiff with icicles. They seemed an eruption of bears from Labrador. Why am I saying it with a Spanish accent? Labrador. It's too late for this. It's too late. Oh my gosh. My butt is getting sore. How many gosh darn positions am I have to stinking sit in for this video? Ow! Like, better not go all Krampus on me. Okay. Oh. Where was I? Labrador. Where's Labrador? I'll just skip to the bed. Okay. No man prefers to sleep two in a bed. In fact, you would a good deal rather not sleep with your own brother. I don't know how it is, but people like to be private when they are sleeping. And when it comes to sleeping with an unknown stranger, in a strange inn, in a strange town, in that stranger a harpooner, then your objections indefinitely multiply. Nor was there any earthly reason why I was a sailor should I sleep two in a bed, for more than anybody else. For sailors no more sleep two in a bed at sea than bachelor kings do ashore. To be sure, they all sleep together in one apartment, but you have your own hammock, and cover yourself with your own blanket, and sleep in your own skin. What is bro saying they're not sleeping? They're sleeping in each other's skin. Anyways, the more I pondered over this harpooner, the more I can't read. Where was I again? My abundantly the fair pressure listen to the woman as linen or woolen, and the case might be would not be of the tidiest, certainly none of the finest. I began to twitch all over. Besides, it was getting late, and any decent harpooner ought to be home and going bedwards. Suppose now he should tumble in upon me midnight. How could I tell from what vibe? Oh wait, I was gonna say vibe. From what vile hole he had been coming. Landlord, I've changed my mind about the harpooner. I can't sleep with him. I'll try the bench here. It actually says that. Look, I'm not making this up. I can't. It's like, look, I'm not making this up. It's so silly. It's so goofy. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, oh wait, actually, I was pointing to the wrong paragraph. Here's the paragraph. There we go. Look at it. It's so silly. It's so goofy. Just as you please. Wait. Just as you please. I'm sorry I can't spare you the tablecloth for a mattress, and it's a plaguey rough border here. Feeling of the knots and notches. But wait a bit. Skirmishander. I've got a carpenter's plane there in the bar. Wait. I say, and I don't even know who's talking, bro. I'll make you snug enough. So saying, he procured a plane, and with his old silk handkerchief first dusting the bench, vigorously set to planning away at my bed, the while grinning like an ape. The shavings flew right and left, till at last a plain iron came bump against an indestructible knot. The landlord was near spraining his wrist, and I told him for heaven's sake to quit. The bed was soft enough to suit me, and I did not know how all the planning in the world could make a eider down of pine plank. So gathered up the shavings with another grin, and throwing them into the great stove in the middle of the room, he went about his business and left me in the brown study. I now took a measure of the bench and found that it was a foot too short, but that could be mended with a chair. But it was a foot too narrow, and the other bench in the room was about 4 inches higher than the planed one, so there was no yoking them. I then placed the 5th bench lengthwise along the only clear space against the wall, leaving little interval between for my back to settle down in. But I soon found that there came such a draught of cold air over me from under the sill of the window that this plan would never do at all, especially as another current from the rickety door met the one from the window. So basically, bro is trying to put together a makeshift bed out of other random pieces of furniture because he really doesn't want to sleep with another dude. So that's what's going on here. Together formed a series of small whirlwinds in the immediate vicinity of the spot where I had thought to spend the night. The devil fetched that harpooner, thought I, but stop, couldn't I steal a march on him, bolt his door inside, and jump into his bed, not to be awakened by the most violent knockings? It seemed no bad idea, but upon second thoughts I dismissed it, for who could tell what the next morning so soon as I popped out of the room, the harpooner might be standing in the entry, all ready to knock me down. Still looking round me again, seeing no possible chance of spending the sufferable night unless in some other person's bed, I began to think that after all I might be in cherishing unwarrantable prejudices against the unknown harpooner. Thinks I'll wait a while. Again? He must be dropping in before long. I'll have a good look at him then, and perhaps we may become jolly good bedfellows after all. There's no telling. But don't I'm getting tired of the British accent. I just want to go to sleep. ASMR break. Okay. I'm all ASMR down now. I still march on still looking around me again. But though the other boarders kept coming in by 1s, 2s, and 3s and going to bed, yet no sign of my harpooner. Landlord, I said, what sort of chap is he? Does he always keep such late hours? It was now hard upon 12 o'clock. The landlord chuckled again with his learned chuckle, and seemed to be mightily tickled at something beyond my comprehension. No, no, he answered. Gently, he's an early bird, early to bed and early to rise. Yes, he's the bird what catches the worm. But tonight he went out peddling, you see, and I don't see what on earth keeps him so late, unless, maybe, he can't sell his head. Can't sell his head? What sort of bamboozling story is this? Are you telling me? Getting into a towering rage. What do you pretend to say, landlord, that this harpooner is actually engaged in blessed Saturday night? Or rather Sunday morning, in peddling his head around this town? And that's precisely it, said the landlord, and I told him he couldn't sell it here. The market's overstocked. With what? Shouted I. With heads, to be sure. Ain't there too many heads in the world? I tell you what it is, landlord, said I, quite calmly. You'd better stop spinning that yarn to me. I'm not green. Okay. May not be. Taking out a stick and wetting a toothpick. But I rather... But, but I rather guess you'll be done brown if that your harpooner hears you sharpening his head. I'll break it for him, said I, now flying into a passion against this unaccountable farrago of the landlord's. Farrago. It's broken already, he said. Broke? Said I. Broke? Do you mean? Sartain? I'm giving him all sorts of accents. I cannot be consistent, and it's... I don't care. I don't care enough. It's too late. It's too late to be consistent. Sartain. That's the very reason he can't... That's the very reason he can't sell it, I guess. Landlord, said I, going up to him as cool as Mount Hecla in a snowstorm. Landlord, stop whittling, and I must understand one another in that too without delay. I come to your house and want to bed. You tell me you can only give me half one, that the other half belongs to a certain harpooner. And about this harpooner, whom I have not yet seen, you persist in telling me the most mystifying and exasperating stories, tending to beget me in an uncomfortable feeling towards the man whom you design for my bedfellow. A sort of connexion landlord, with is an intimate of confidential one in highest degree. I now demand of you to speak out and tell me who and what this harpooner is, and whether I shall be in respect safe to spend the night with him. And in the first place, you will be so good as to unsay that story about selling his head, which, if true, I take to be a good evidence that this harpooner is stark mad, and I've got no idea of sleeping with a madman. And you, sir, landlord, you, sir, by trying to induce me into so knowingly, would thereby render yourself inable and criminal prosecution. Wow, said the landlord. He just says wall. To the landlord. That's a pretty that's a pretty long statement for a chap that rips a little now. For a chap that rips a little now and then. But be easy. There is this here harpooner. I have been telling you of his just arrived from the South Seas, where he brought up a blamed New Zealand heads. Great curious, and he sold all of them but one, and that one he's trying to sell tonight, 'cause tomorrow's Sunday, and it would not do to be selling human heads about the streets when folks is going to churches. He wanted to last Sunday, but I stopped him just as he was going out the door, with 4 heads strung on a string, for all earth, like a string of Indians. This account cleared up the otherwise unaccountable mystery, and showed that the landlord, after all, had no idea of fooling me. But at the same time, what I could think of a harpooner who stayed out at Sunday night clean into the holy Sabbath, engaged in such cannibal business, and selling the heads of dead idolators. Depend upon it, landlord, that harpooner is a dangerous man. He pays regular. He pays. What accent does this pro have? He pays regular. Was his rejoined. But come, it's getting dreadful. I can't keep a consistent accent for the life of me. It's getting a little late, he says. It's getting a little late. You had better be turning flukes. It's a nice bed. Sal and me slept in that here bed the night we were spliced. There's plenty room for two kick about in that bed. It's an almighty big bed that. Why, afore we give it up, Sol used to put our Sam and little Johnny in the foot of it. But I got a dreaming and sprawling about in the night, and somehow Sam got pitched on the floor and came near breaking his arm. After that, Sal and it wouldn't do. Come along here, I'll give you a gleam of your jiffy. And so say he lighted a candle and held it. And so say he lighted a candle and held it towards me, offering a lead by the way. But I stood irresolute, with looking at a clock on the corner. He exclaimed, "Ivan, it's a Sunday. You won't see that harpooner tonight. He's come to anchor somewhere. Come along, then. Do come, won't you? Come." Burp. Why do I have to burp, but I can't burp? Wait, where's my water? I need water. This Irish guy really wants yaoi so bad. Stay. No! Book's upside down. Alright, where is this dude? I considered the matter a moment, and then up the stairs we went, and I was ushered into a small room, cold and calm and furnished, sure enough, with a prodigious, I guess that's right, bed, almost big enough, indeed, for any 4 harpooners to sleep abreast. There, said the landlord, placing the candle on the crazy old sea chest that did double duty as a washstand and center table. There, make yourself comfortable now, and good night to you. I turned round from eyeing the bed, but he had disappeared. Folding back the counterpane, I stood over the bed. Though none of the most elegant, it yet stood the scrutiny tolerably, as you would say in America. Well, I then glanced around the room, and besides the bedstead and center table, could see no other furniture belonging to the place, but that was a foul burp. I tasted my ashes. Okay. I'm gonna need some water. Okay, I can breathe again. Folding back the counterplane, I stood over the bed, though of things not properly belonging to the room. There was a hammock lashed up and thrown upon the floor in one counter. Also, a large seaman's bag containing the harpooner's wardrobe, no doubt, in lieu of land trunk. Likewise, there was a parcel of outlandish bonefish hooks on one shelf over a fireplace, and a tall harpoon standing at the head of the bed. But what is this on the chest? Excuse me. I took it up and held it close to the light, and felt it, and smelt it, and tried every way possible to arrive to some satisfactory conclusion concerning it. I can compare it to nothing but a large doormat, ornamented at the edges with little tinkling tags, something like a stained porcupine quills round the Indian moccasin. There was a hole or slit in the middle of this mat, the same as the South American ponchos. I am gassy today, gosh darn it. Ponchos. But could it be possible that any sober harpooner would get into a doormat and parade the streets of any Christian town, or any town of sort, guys? I put it on to try it, and he's just wearing a little cloak. He's just wearing the guy's little clothes. To try it, and it weighed me down like a hamper, being uncomfortably shaggy and thick, and I thought a little damp, as uncommonly shaggy and thick, and I thought, as though this mysterious harpooner had been wearing it for a rainy day. I went up in it to a bit of glass stuck against the wall. I went up in it to a bit of glass stuck against the wall, and I never saw such sight in my life. I tore myself out of it in such a hurry that I gave myself a kink in the neck. And I sat down on the side of the bed and commenced thinking about this head-peddling harpooner and his doormat. After thinking some time is he still wearing the bro's little poncho or heckin' clothes, I guess? And then stood in the middle of the room thinking. I then took off my coat and thought a while more in my shirt sleeves, but beginning to feel very cold now, half undressed as I was, and remembering what the landlord said about the harpooneers not coming home at all that night, it being so very late, I made no more ado, but jumped out of my pantaloons and boots. Then, blowing out the light, tumbled into bed, and commended myself to the care of heaven. Whether the mattress was stuffed with corn cobs or broken crockery, there is no telling, but I rolled about in a good deal, and could not sleep for a long time. At last I slid off into a light doze, and had pretty nearly made a good offering toward the land of Nod, when I heard a heavy footfall in the passage, and saw a glimmer of light come into the room from under the door. Lord save me, thinks I. That must be the harpooner, the infernal head peddler. But I lay perfectly still and resolved not to say a word. We're finally at this scene, chat. We're finally almost an hour in. It takes a lot of build-up. It's a great story. It takes a lot of build-up. You need to understand the small things to then get the bigger things. To get the big moments. The only one bed trope scene. Oh, this is going to be a long video. not editing any of it. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! It's so long. Good. We're gonna have to figure this out, chat. Okay, Lord save me. Anyways, what is spoken to? Holding a light in one hand and that identical New Zealand head in the other, the stranger entered the room, and without looking towards the bed, placed his candle on a good way off from me, to the floor in the corner, and then began working away at the knotted cords of the large bag I before spoke of as being in the room. I was all eagerness to see his face, but he kept it averted for some time while employed in unlacing the bag's mouth. This accomplished, however, he turned round, when, good heavens, what a sight! Such a face! It was a dark, purplish, yellow color. Here and there stuck over the large blackish-looking squares. Yes, it's just as I thought. He's a terrible bedfellow. He's been in a fight, got dreadfully cut, and here he is, just from the surgeon. Just from the surgeon he is. But at that moment he changed, to turn his face towards the light. That I plainly saw he could not be sticking plasters at all. Those black squares on his cheeks, they were stains of some sort or other. At first I knew not what to make of this, but soon an inkling of truth occurred to me. I remembered a story of a white man, a whaleman too, who, falling among the cannibals, had been tattooed by them. I concluded that this harpooner, in the course of his distant voyages, must have met with a similar adventure. And what it is, after all, it's only his outside. It's only his outside. A man can be honest in any sort of skin, but then what to make of his unearthly complexion? That part of it, I mean. So he's not racist? What? Anyways, at least he's not mostly racist. I thought after all he's outside pushing for. Lying round, to be sure, it might be nothing but a good coat of tropical tannings, but I never heard a hot sun's tanning a white man into a purplish yellow one. However, I had never been in the South Seas, and perhaps the sun there produced these extraordinary effects upon the skin. Now, while all these ideas were passing through me like lightning, this harpooner never noticed me at all. Typical trope. Stop hitting me! Mommy. Why do I have that song stuck in my head? Fun fact, actually, before I continue reading, I've been wearing this headset for like 7 years. The inside here, there used to be an extra coating on this, like a rubbery type coating. It all fell off eventually. And actually, this fell off ages ago. I tried to fix it, as you see. I gave up, and so I always just hold it like this. And it's actually on. This is actually backwards. It's supposed to be like this, but it just doesn't fit my head right, or I guess it does. But at one point in time, it didn't. So I just got in the habit of wearing it backwards. So all sounds are backwards and inverted, and that's why playing video games is difficult. Cause like a sound will show from here in the video game, and then I go like an idiot. I'm just rambling. Yeah, that's this guy's rambling. I'm rambling. We have so much in common. Oh my gosh. He's just sitting in bed. This just like studying this dude. Resolved to say, just spoken to. Resolved not to say a word till spoken to. Holding a light in one hand, and that identical New Zealand head in the. Oh, okay, back. Well, just as I thought he's. Hadn't been. South Seas, New Zealand head, ghastly things. Placing these on his chest in the middle of the room, he then took the New Zealand head, a ghastly thing enough, and crammed it into the bag. He now took off his hat, a new beaver hat, when I came nigh, singing out with fresh surprise. There was no hair on his head, none to speak of at least. Nothing but a small scalp knot twisted up on his forehead. Bro's bald! His bald purplish head now looked for all the world like a mildewed skull. Had not the stranger stood between me and the door, I would have bolted out of. So he's not scared of a savage, but he's scared of the bald. He had the stranger bolted a dinner. Even as it was, I thought something of slipping out the window, but it was the second floor back. I am no coward, but what to make of this head-peddling purple rascal altogether past my comprehension. Ignorance is the partner of fear, and being completely nonplussed and confounded about the stranger, I confess I was now much afraid of him, as if it was the devil himself who had thus broken into my room at the dead of night. In fact, I was so afraid of him that I was not game enough just then to address him and demand a satisfactory answer concerning what seemed inflexible in him. Meanwhile, I continued the business of Meanwhile, he continued the business of undressing, and at last showed his chest and arms. As I live, these covered parts of him were checkered with the same squares as his face. His back, too, was all over the same dark squares, and seemed to have been in a 30 years' war, and just escaped from it with the sticking plaster shirt. Still more, his very legs were marked. As bro, she's just looking him up and down, dang. As if parcel of dark green frogs were running up the trunks. I dyslexia. It was now quite plain that he must be some abominable savage or other, shipped aboard of a whaleman in the South Sea, and so landed in this Christian country. I quaked to think of it. A peddler of heads too, perhaps the heads in his of his own brothers. He might take a fancy to mine. Heavens! Look at that tomahawk. But there was no time for shuddering, for now this savage went about something that completely fascinated my attention, and convicted me that he must indeed be a heathen, going to his heavy grego or rapal or dreadnought, which he had previously hung on the chair. He fumbled the pockets and produced a at length a curious little deformed image with a hunch on its back and exactly the color of a 3 days old Congo baby. Remembering the emblemed head, at first I almost thought that this black mannequin was a real baby, preserved in some similar manner, but seeing that it was not at all limber, and that it glistened a good deal like polished ebony, I concluded it must be nothing but a wooden doll, which indeed it proved to be. For now the savage goes up to the empty fireplace and removes the papered fireboard, set up this little hunchback image. I mean, just a spoiler alert, this dude is actually the main character is actually super woke. I know he's describing a lot of these things in like a critical manner, but in short, they do eventually end up worshiping the idol together. Just because he's like, I'll try your religion. And temptation between the Arians, the chimney jabs, and all the bricks inside were very sooty, so that I thought this fireplace made a very appropriate little shrine or chapel for this Congo idol. I now screwed my eyes hard towards the half-hidden image, feeling but ill at ease meantime, to see what was next to follow. First he takes about a double handful of shavings out of his Gorego pocket and places them carefully before the idol, then laying a bit of ship biscuit on top and applying the flame from the lamp, he kindled the shavings into the sacrificial blaze. Presently, after many hasty snatches into the fire, and was still hastier withdrawals of his fingers, whereby he seemed to be scorching them badly, he at last succeeded in drawing out the biscuit. Then, blowing off the heat of ashes a little, he made the polite offer of it to the little inward creature. But the little devil did not seem to fancy such a dry sort of fare at all. It never moved its lips. All those strange antics were accompanied by still stranger guttural noises from the devotee, who seemed to be praying in a sing-song, or else singing some pagan psalmody or other, during which the face, his face twitched about in the most unnatural manner. At last, extinguishing the fire, he took the idol up very unceremoniously and bagged it in his grego pocket as carelessly as if he were a sportsman bagging a dead woodcock. All these queer proceedings increased my uncomfortableness, and seeing him now exhibiting strong symptoms of concluding his business operations, and jumping into bed with me, I thought it was high time, now or never, before the light was put out, to break the spell in which I had so long been bound. But the interval I spent in deliberating was a fatal one. Taking up his tomahawk from the table, he examined the head of it for an instant, and then holding it to the light, with his mouth on the handle, he puffed a great cloud of tobacco smoke. The next moment the light was extinguished, and his wild cannibal tomahawk between his teeth sprang into bed with me. I sang out. I could not help it now, and giving a sudden grunt of astonishment, he began feeling me. I didn't mean to read it that way. Stammering out or something, I knew not what. I rolled away from him again the wall, then conjured him whoever or whatever he might be, to keep quiet and let me get up and light the lamp again. But his guttural responses satisfied me at once that he but ill comprehended my meaning. Hold Huel debelu. Huel debelu. Who are you? He said. You no speak da me, I kill ye. He has an accent too, but I don't know what. Speak tell me who he be or damn me, I kill ye again. This doesn't even sound like a real accent, bro. Oh wait, Landlord, for God's sake, Peter Coffin! I shouted. Landlord, watch, Coffin, angel, save me! Speaky, tell me who he be, or damn me, I kill ye. Again growled the cannibal, while his horrid flourishings of the tomahawk scattered the hot tobacco ashes about me, till I thought my linen would get on fire. But thank heaven, at the moment the landlord came into the room, light in hand, and leaping from the bed, I ran up to him. Don't be afraid now, he said, grinning again. Quick wig, quick wig, Queequeg here, wouldn't harm a hair on your head. Sure he wouldn't. Stop your grinning, I shouted I. And why didn't you tell me that infernal harpooner was a cannibal? I thought you knowed it. Didn't I tell you he was peddling heads around town? But turn flukes again and go to sleep. Quick, look here. You sabi me, I sabi you. This man sleepy you sabi? Me sabi plenty, grunted Quickwig, pulling away at his pipe and sitting up in bed. You quickly in, he added, motioning to me with the tomahawk and throwing the clothes to one side. He really did this in not only a civil, but a really kind and charitable way. I stood looking at him a moment, for all his tattooing, he was on the whole a clean, comely looking cannibal. What's all this fuss I have been making about? Thought I to myself. The man's a human being just as I am. He has as much a reason to fear me as I have to be afraid of him. Better sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunken Christian. Landlord, said I, tell him to stash his tomahawk there, or pipe, or wherever you call it. Tell him to stop smoking or shoot, or, in short, and I will turn in with him. But I don't fancy having a man smoking in bed with me. It's dangerous. Besides, I ain't insured. Oh, that's his biggest problem, right? This being told to Queequeg, he once occupied and again politely motioned me to get into bed, rolling over to one side as much to say, I won't touch your leg for you. I won't touch a leg of you. Okay, I won't touch a leg of you. Good night, landlord, I said. You may go. I turned in and never slept better in my life. Okay. Okay, that's the I really just... That was a lot of reading. That was an hour? I'm surprised my throat isn't super heckin' sore. Ciao.